I have a big challenge because much of my profession has been as a professor in higher education. Okay. So much of my time has been as a professor in higher education. And in higher education, what you normally do is you take 1 hour and still probably don't make a point. And here I have to, in 20 minutes, try to convince you about AI in school, the why and how. Fortunately for me, I have also another training as a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 7 years. And since Action Committee is always also, what the client wants to hear is admit, issue notice, meanwhile proceedings are stayed, and you have to get this in 2 minutes to 5 minutes. So I can do the whole range, and so if I've been given 20 minutes, I can do that. A bigger advantage now is that we are in the age of technology. So the entire presentation is already on Twitter. If you go to Twitter, @MMPant, you will get the entire presentation in one as a PDF file, which is a link to a Dropbox document. If you don't want to go through all the hassle of Dropbox, each of these slides, which will be shown whenever they are shown, is available as an image. So you have about 20, 24 slides. But I really don't like PowerPoint. So it happened with me once that I do a lot of talks, and evening before the talk, this organizing girl calls me up and, "Sir, will you be using PowerPoint or you will speak just like that?" So it looked in her tone, this, "Are you going to be wearing a proper suit, etc., or will you just come in a dhoti kurta?" So what I do is I create PowerPoint, I send it to the organizers, then I try to ignore it. Because I've already given it to you as Twitter, and anybody who wants can continue to do that. And I don't even know what am I supposed to do to get that on. So you want to show the slides at some point of time? Okay, so very good. So we just met Manit Jain, and Manit Jain is going to talk to you at length about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. He has a very nice book on the Fourth Industrial Revolution and what it means. And I am, in a sense, building on that with a particular focus. So let me come straight to what is the story about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And while Manit will talk all its splendid, glorious things, I want to say, what is the story? You see, you must have heard from a lot of people that India and China were the wealthiest countries a few hundred years ago. And it was not because of any other thing, except that we had a very large population. And when the primary source of energy is the muscular power of the population, those who have large numbers have larger energy to distribute. And that is why in the social structure, men were considered more important because the horsepower they could generate was a little more. This continued for several hundreds of years and so on. But around 1784, something interesting happened. Humans discovered the power of steam. And that was the beginning of the first industrial revolution. And it gave a huge amount of energy that was available. So this was brought to notice of the world by Klaus Schwab in January 2016 at the World Economic Forum at Davos. But notice, 1784 or so, the first industrial revolution is coming. And US is born on 4th July 1776, right in time for the industrial age. So all the advantage we had could just be leapfrogged because of the new energies that they had. They had a much lower population, but the energy availability made the huge transformation. This went on for about 100 years. And then around 1870, something interesting happened. This guy called Edison, he invented the electric lamp. But Edison was a very interesting character. See, he was not like that tragic hero who says, "Look here, I discovered the bulb, but nobody cares for me and nobody understands. Government is not listening. Whom do? I have such a wonderful thing which will change the world." No. He said, "I have an electric bulb. In order for this bulb to be lit in every place, I have to have electricity going to those places. So the bulb is no good without electricity generation and distribution." And therefore he created what is called the General Electric Company. And he did not go to the then Minister of Power and this and that. He went to the people and said, will you invest in my company? And GE, as you know, is one of the biggest enterprises which also has migrated to present times. And Edison was the genius who did this. Tesla was also brilliant, but somehow he didn't have this sense of putting things together. So he almost was only in physics books, where Tesla is the unit of magnetic field, except till Elon Musk kind of revived him. So something very interesting happened. And why I'm referring to this is because now Andrew Nugg, for the AI age, has said that AI is the new electricity. So this metaphor is very important. But something else happened, and I want to draw attention to that. Prior to the electric bulb, there were oil companies. But oil companies used to sell kerosene. In India, it is called kerosene. In the UK, it used to be called lamp oil. And it used to be used for lighting lamps, street lights. We also had the Janta cooker and all that. And oil companies were happy with that. When the electric bulb came, they realized that they cannot go on kerosene alone. So what they did was, they started investing and understanding petrol engines and diesel engines. And now you see what happens. You have petrol engine, you have diesel engine, you have electrical engines, you have electrical motors. This was almost the most glorious phase of our life in the late 18th century, early 19th century, early 20th also. This continued for less than 100. Around 1969 comes what is called the third industrial revolution. And till the third industrial revolution, all automation that you had was by electromagnetic systems which created make and break things. So the self in your car, the electric bell, automatic door opening was some kind of electromechanical mechanism we did it. Around 1970s, electronics started developing. And then from the diode, triode to transistor to IC to TV to computer, all this happened, which was called the third industrial revolution. What Klaus Schwab says is now we are at the beginning of a fourth industrial revolution, and that has a few characteristics which are different from that of the third industrial revolution. And what I want to draw attention to is, just like I said, that US became independent in 1776, right in time for the first industrial revolution. The IITs in India were created in the 1960s. Their first graduates came out in 1965. They were ready for the third industrial revolution. So when you hear of IITians doing very well, it is because the timing was right. The IITs had a computer, nobody else had a computer. They could use things, they were prepared for the third industrial age. My message to all educationals, and especially at school, is to prepare the children for the fourth industrial age. And there is no other institution earmarked for it. So fortunately, today it is now a people's movement. And why I'm saying it is the people's movement, look at the way this country learned to use the mobile phone. Who taught this country how to use the mobile phone? I actually tease my IAS friends and colleagues. I said, you lost a big opportunity. There would have been a Director General of mobile phone training in the rank of Cabinet Minister of State. Then there would have been a Deputy Director General of Android training, Deputy Director General of iOS training. Then you would go to your Aadhaar card to get the training. But nothing happened. We all learnt it by ourselves. And this is my message for the AI revolution. Let's just do it. Just learn it, apply it, and so on. And fortunately, the government isn't enlightened enough now to ban you from teaching AI in schools. It may do all kinds of things, but it cannot ban you from teaching because they don't even know what it is. But what you call AI is actually an extension of the physics, chemistry, maths that you are already teaching in schools. Except that you are teaching them to do complicated calculations by hand, you tell them complicated calculations will be done by a computer. So this is the key message that I have for you. And the other thing that has happened is very interesting. I don't think it was by design. Suddenly, school education has become the most important stage of education. Earlier model was school was the preparation for higher education. And people thought that real education, learning, proficiency happens at the higher education level. As turned out, higher education is now of very bad quality and also inaccessible. So, Bhattacharya talked about some data. So there are approximately 15 million children who pass the class 12th level every year. But there are not more than 15,000 good educational seats in higher education. You could put about 5,000-6,000 in IITs, a few in medical colleges, a few in national law schools, but not more than 15,000 good seats for higher education. So only 1 in 1,000 persons will get the benefit of a good higher education. For 999 out of 1,000, the school is the terminal point of education. And therefore, it becomes even more important to prepare people at the school leaving level to be able to directly get on with the world, so to say. So this is the basic kind of message that I want to say. I have some slides which you should have got by now, and maybe towards the end I will show it like you try to complete the syllabus 15 days before the exam. So I'll show you the slides at the end. But let me first tell you the key narrative that I have. See, I come from a physics background, therefore lots of stories come around physics. So when we talk about the fourth industrial age, the difference between the other ones was that earlier it was focusing on something. What did I say? I said first industrial age was about energy. Second was another form of energy. And then, as Manit will tell you, nuclear energy, etc., came in. But the fourth industrial age is very different from all the previous ones. And this is very important for school education. See, in the earlier ages, around 1980s up to 70s, knowledge was expanding, but computers were not available. Therefore, you had to specialize in a certain area. So, even at class 12 level nowadays, I hear people say what? PCM, medical, this, non-medical, then there is arts, then commerce, etc., etc. Why are you streamlining that? You are telling somebody to learn science, but he has no idea what money is. You're telling somebody about money, he has no idea how the rest of the world works. So this is one big change that is happening. The fourth industrial age is about a fusion of the physical world, the world of atoms and energy, the information world, the world of bits and qubits, and the biological world, the world of genes and neurons. If you know what is electron, proton, but don't know what is a neuron, you're not going to be the leader. You will be there, you will exist. But to be a leader, you must be as fluent in understanding what genes are, what neurons are, and so on and so forth. So the integration is a very, very important aspect. I'll give you an example. I'm not just talking theory. Take the field of imaging, for example. So about 1890 something, Röntgen discovered X-rays, and X-rays were a basic medium for basically looking at hard stuff, so the bones. But it could do nothing about tissues and softer stuff until ultrasound came. And then someday, for a long time, we used to just stand in front of this thing, static two-dimensional X-ray images were happening. But then somebody thought that why not I move the X-ray tube like this and move the human like this? And you got what is called a CAT scan, and you could get 3D images. Then recently, you got something called MRI. MRI now is a splendid example of this fusion I am talking of. The principle of MRI is that we have a lot of water in our bodies. Water has hydrogen, hydrogen has a proton. If I put a very huge high intensity field, the proton will start doing something, and from that I can interpret what is going on in your nerves, in your blood, in your arteries, in your veins, and so on. And this is something which has happened. And then there is something which you look into your eyes called optical coherence tomography, where you can see what is happening into your retina. But for all this, you had human experts who knew how to analyze the pattern. He would look at this and say, you have got this, this. Recently, they did it in England with a set of specialists in optometry, and they found that the machine could classify the eye disorders far better than humans could. The MRI scan is interpreted by a convolutional neural network, which is the fundamental thing of image processing. So whether it is recognizing it is a cat, or recognizing your face, or a radiography, or an OCT, or an MRI, it's a convolutional neural network that is in place. Now, this is, so on one hand, radiology as a profession is gone. On the other hand, the services are available to many number of people and can almost go electronically into remote areas. So this is the thing that we are seeing. And as they say in sometimes in the wrong kind of English, you haven't seen nothing yet. That's the kind of thing that we are looking at. I see I have only a few minutes left, so I will now start taking you to the syllabus. How does this happen? This slide. Slides doesn't seem to move, the clock moves, so let me now quickly try to tell you. So what is the essential difference? So this might as well be kept here because it doesn't work. See, let me now just try to tell you what is the key difference. वो चल रहा है but बहुत time लगा रहा है. So the point is very simple. Let me quickly say what is AI and what is new about AI. Andrew Nagas said AI is the new electricity, it will pervade everywhere. See, before the computer age, we still had books and ledgers and documents and so on where we stored information. We could retrieve information by reading those documents, looking at those various tables and ledgers and stocks. What computers allowed us to do was to store instructions as to what to do with the information. So you could say, from all this list, give me these names, this thing, this thing, this thing. So the stored computer was the basic thing. What AI does is that instead of storing instructions into the computer, you can actually give the thing examples of what to do. See, okay. So so let me now quickly do this. So statutory warning. Many car mirrors now have objects are closer than you think. AI is closer than you think. In 2016, 2017, in fact, sometimes you're using AI, you don't even know it. When you're using Siri, Cortana, Google Maps, etc., you're using AI, you don't even know it. इसका कोई भरोसा नहीं है कि कहाँ जाता है. Okay, अभी कुछ कर रहा है. So John Simon was a physicist. I mean, I've read his books, etc. So he used to say that what is the frontier of knowledge today will get into high school textbooks in a short time. And that's what I'm trying to say. For many people, AI is something new, but it is time that we put it in the school. Madan Mohan Malviya, he said in 1919, if we start teaching our school children about technology, it will take them 7 years before they get into this thing. This is a very nice story from Einstein. Einstein was at Princeton, so he gave a question paper. Some of the teaching assistants said, but these are the same questions you gave last year to the same students. He said, the questions are the same, but the answers have changed. And that is what we are talking. Yes, I don't know. So what has changed? Authority-driven to data-driven. Age-appropriate learning to lifelong learning. What has not changed? You know that. What we hope to implement is mastery learning and personalization. Lifelong learning is a basic thing. This is a very, we don't understand the exponential function. Finding your element is something which Ken Robinson has said, these are the stages that a teacher takes you through. These are some of the aspects. This is the main diagram. In a traditional computer, you give instructions what to do, and it does it. In the AI machine, you give them examples of what the right thing is, and it determines how it has to do. It does it so by means of certain algorithms. Chatbots is the new thing, and we expect all teachers to have chatbots to assist them, and therefore, Bill Gates believes that all students will have a teacher with them 24/7. Success happens when opportunity, so don't be scared, be prepared. So I've finished this in time. I am available on, I think the next slide is more important. My contacts are, so you can If you go to Twitter at MMPant, you'll get all the slides as a PDF, etc., etc. You can contact me on various things. I have created a set of courses based on WhatsApp for learners, for educators, and for parents. The idea is this has to be a movement. The right place is to do it in school, and the right time is now. Thank you.